Welcome back. The National Museum of Egyptian Civilization welcomed in Cairo thousands of visitors and tourists of different nationalities after its opening. As we enter the main hall of the museum, we see monuments from the Stone Age and surrounded by pieces of ancient civilization. They also alternate with monuments from the Coptic Islamic era. It includes more than 50 artifacts that are part of the development stages of Egypt's civilization, creating the timeline through which the visitors travel. The Royal Hall of Mummies, which includes 22 modern state mummies from the ancient Egypt that have been kept since the early 20th century at the Egyptian Museum on the capital iconic Tahrir Square, were inaugurated in the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization on April 18. From the 1950s onwards, they were displayed in the small room side by side, unaccompanied by advertisements. In their new location here at the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, they are each displayed individually next to their sarcophagus and in some cases next to their statues. To know more about the mummies that were transferred here from the Tahrir Museum to the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, we are joined by Mr. BasEm Raouf, and he's a curator, and by Dr. Marian Adel, and she also a curator. Hello and welcome to Nile Cruise.
Hello.
Let's first start with the importance of the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization and why this place was chosen to transfer the royal mummies and, of course, an extraordinary parade here to this place.
First of all, the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, we are speaking about the civilization overall, starting from the prehistory till the modern life. Why exactly have been chosen the museum for displaying the mummies? The way of displaying the mummies is totally different as it was before. In the Egyptian Museum, Tahrir Square, when it was displaying there, it was all of them in just one row. Here the idea is totally different. We tried to rebuild like the Valley of the King in Luxor, the place, and we start to put each and every mummy in a separate room with their coffins, and some of the objects have been discovered with them in the museum. So the way of displaying is totally different, and the place also, because there's a large place, so it helps us to make it as you can see it on this display. Mm-hmm. As you said, we moved 22 mummy to the museum. We're displaying only 20 mummy right now, and there's 2 mummies in the labs.
Mm-hmm. Why they are not also displayed with the other mummies?
It's kept, first of all, because of the place. We need to not be very crowded on displaying the mummies, and also to be like, in case if anything happened, any mummy, we need to make any restoration on it, or you need to go to the labs. So we're not going to keep the showcase empty. So we're going to move one of these 2 mummies in as the replacement.
Okay. Dr. Marian, how the museum here show the diversity of civilization?
Of course, the location of National Museum of Egyptian Civilizations chosen by the Fustat, one of the important capitals in Islamic area, and contains the complex of monuments, complex of antiquities, and surround a lot of Coptic monuments such as Hanging Church, Salahuddin Ayyubi Castle, Muhammad Ali Music, and Haushin Temple. It's passing through a lot of civilizations, and one of the most important crafts in Fustat area, poetry. It's the same idea to the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization to show a lot of idea for crafts such as the jewelry craft and the poetry craft, wooden crafts, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mr. BasEm, back also to the royal mummies, and the way of display these mummies is very important, of course. Is there a new technique of display this time for these royal mummies to attract visitors?
The way, as I told you, the way itself, if you visit these mummies in the first place when it was displayed in Tahrir Square, you will feel the difference. Because in the Tahrir Square, as we said, it was like a little bit crowded inside the displaying itself. Because a lot of mummies beside each others, all of them together. But here, the way of displaying, as I told you, that every king have its own room. So like it's have his own tomb that we discovered him inside it. So they will be displaying, and also some techniques that we have here, like the CT scan or the scan or an X-ray for the mummy itself. Like one of the mummies, he died in the battlefield, so we make a CT scan on his body to know how exactly he was died in the battle. And we was discovered that he have like an axe here in his skull, and that's why he died. So I think that's the difference between us and the Egyptian Museum. The old
And every mummy has its own story being told in this.
The visitors, when they came here, first of course, all of them want to go to the royal mummy to see the circuit of mummification and how the body till now still remains. But the museum itself, the main gallery or the tour gallery, there's a lot of objects, like we called it like the masterpiece of the display. For example, we have one of the oldest skeletons. It's dated back like 35,000 years, 4th century. That's not the oldest one, but this is one of the oldest skeletons that we have. This is very important for them. They want to see it. Also, we have the statues for the King Thomas III. It's a very famous king, and he was a great warrior. So also, it's a masterpiece. And of course, besides that, the Kaaba cover in the Islamic era. The Kaaba cover, as you know, that each and every year it was a ceremony. Go outside of Egypt to Saudi Arabia to deliver the Kaaba cover there. So we have one of these Kaaba cover. The last one have been go out at the time of the President Gamal Abdel Nasser. It's displaying also here in the museum.
Okay, Mrs. Marian, of course, the museum here holds a variety of cultural, educational, and other training activities. Tell us more about these activities.
Yes, actually, National Museum of Egyptian Civilizations presents a lot of activities because it considered culture center, educational center, and research center. A lot of fields because we passing through a lot of areas, beginning to prehistoric areas to passing pharaonic areas, Greek Roman, and modern history also, and we can donated a lot of artworks from modern artists such as Muhammad Mandoor, Hamoud Mukhtar, Said al-Sadr, a lot of works, and we can, in the management of archaeological awareness, we can present a lot of celebration for the museum, especially historic celebrations and estimations, celebration, and so on.
Mr. BasEm, what are the how do visitors react when they come and see the exhibition here, especially the younger generation and the school trips? I see two or three more school trips at the door when we came in. How do they react to the pieces of art that are shown in this museum?
First of all, for Egyptian, when they came, they said, we have this in Egypt, this museum in Egypt, we don't believe ourselves. Everyone was very happy when they just entered the museum. Some Egyptian, they didn't came only one time, they came a lot. When they came and show how the way of displaying and how the museum is organized, so they don't believe that this is something inside Egypt. The museum has been made on very high techniques, and also we have a lot of media that they can use, or touch screens that kids used to get information from it. So they are very happy when they came to visit the museum, and very happy with what they are seeing, that they have this in their country. And they start to tell their friends that come and visit the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. It's very good and it's very unique of museum inside Egypt.
Is there any or some of the temporary exhibition held here in the museum?
Yeah, we have one temporary exhibition held before. It was for handicrafts. And we chose this topic exactly because the place itself, as Dr. Marian said, Fustat was an old capital in Islamic era. So, and the place itself was famous by pottery maker and also the dye houses for painting the clothes. While we making the museum, by the way, and then the construction of the museum, we discovered here dye house. It's dated back to the Fatimic time. The dye house, it's a place for painting the clothes.
You said you discovered here?
Yeah.
Where?
Here, beside the museum.
In this area?
Yeah, inside the museum itself. Inside the museum, we discovered here, and that's because the place itself, it was for handicrafts. So that's why we choose this topic for the temporary exhibition. It was speaking about pottery maker, jewelry, textile. So it's speaking about different things, also taking from the prehistory till the modern life.
Dr. Marian, there are a collection of artifacts are displayed here in this museum, came from different other museums. Tell us more about this important collection.
Of course, the collections in the Central Hall in the National Museum of Egyptian Civilizations, passing through prehistory from the pharaonic history. So we can see the collection from the variety museum in Egypt, such as Egyptian Museum and Islamic Museum, Coptic Museum, and Geology Museum, and a lot of archaeological sites in the Egypt, such as Hilwan, an excavation from Zaki Saad, and Maadi area, Saara, and so on. It's a very collection from a lot of areas in the Egypt. So it's very incredible for Egyptian and non-Egyptian to say this is variety in the museum.
Mr. BasEm, how do you evaluate the drastic change that happened in this area, and of course it reflects on this important museum?
What happened in the area, it's something like what I can say, it's awesome. The lake behind us, before it was like very dark, there's nothing, it was very black, and it's not clean at all. So the restoration that they made in the lake and how it became clean, this landscape that you can see, the area itself, it became different. People that they left in front of the museum, they feel that they are in a different place. That's not the old Fustat that they left before inside. So I think that there's a hard work have been done here from the government for this area, and also hard work from our ministry for restoring this area, and you can see it in this position right now.
Dr. Marian, here we are beside Ain Sira Lake. Tell us more about this lake.
Yes, Ain Sira Lake, of course, one of the most important lakes in ancient Egyptian history, because it's the sulfur medical lake. but all times damage, and the role governments, Egyptian governments, we can cleaning and clearing this is lake to be back view for the National Museum of Egyptian Civilizations and Egypt and non-Egypt. When it came in front of the lakes, we can broad for this view, because it presents one of the most important history and medical history in ancient Egyptian.
BasEm, of course, the museum displays a number and a variety of different civilizations beside the pharaonic civilization. What is the most important artifact here in the royal mummies? Let's start with the royal mummies, the most important one that attracts tourists, and of course in the other civilizations.
Okay. In the museum we have, in the main gallery, 1,500 objects. In the royal mummies we have almost 150 objects. That's beside the 20 royal mummies. The most attractive...
so they are not only mummies, there are other, of course, archaeological...
Yes, correct. As you said, the coffins, also some tools that have been discovered with the skin inside the tomb. So all this displaying in the royal mummies, not only for the royal mummies itself. As well, I think the most important piece or object in the main gallery, this skeleton that we told you about, that it's 35,000 years before century. This attracts a lot of people. They don't believe that there is something very old like this. They're tools that this man used in his daily life also. Some of them did it back 1 million years before century. So this is one of the most important pieces in the museum. Most of the visitors, they like more the pharaonic part. They don't have like a very attraction for the Greek Roman or Coptic or Islamic objects. They have the more attractive for them the pharaonic part. That's why most of, or half of the room itself, or half of the gallery itself, it's speaking about the pharaonic time. One of the most important pieces we have in the museum, a coffin for a priest. It's dated back for the late period before the Greek Roman time. This one, it was stolen. It was displaying in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. With the Egyptian government was able to bring it back to Egypt almost 3 years ago, or something like that, 4 years ago, I think. It's displaying here inside the museum. The technique itself of making this coffin, it's very unique. It's made from something called cartonnage. Cartonnage, it's like a layer of a linen, then you put a layer of a white cement, so on, a layer of a layer, then it became strong, and they start to cover by gold. So this also one of these attractive object in the museum. Beside, of course, the Kaaba cover, as I told you, it's very attractive also for Egyptian to visit, to see it here.
Okay, how about children? Do they have special place here?
Yeah, of course. We have here educational center for kids. We organize with the schools visits to here. We have a special tour guides for kids. How because we have to get a unique or a special guide in the museum. So they go to the museum, they go to the gallery, or they go to the tour exhibition. They start to have their tour. After that, they go to the classrooms that we have here inside the museum, and they start to make like a small project, like jewelry, artifacts, or handcraft, or mummification. It's according to the program what this educational department are gonna arrange it with their schools.
Okay. Well, BasEm Raouf and Dr. Marian, Adel curators, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile Cruise.